What's going on? This is City Chapters Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby J. Today's chapter is with Olivia Evans. Welcome, Olivia. Olivia is a Black native Italian woman from Spokane, a mother, artist, story seeker, arts advocate, and nature lover. She's the owner of Mama Wolf Media LLC, which is a BIPOC and woman-owned arts organization dedicated to uplift underrepresented communities, focusing on story and pursuing everything creative. Olivia was also a guest on chapter 25 for the Roots experience. And so she's here again to talk more about her personal story and her businesses and just her thoughts on life. So we're going to get into it. What's going on?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So where do we start, Olivia? Let's start with your backstory.
Oh,
give us a little bit give us a little bit about where you were born and raised and that kind of origin story.
All right. I was born in Kirkland, Washington, raised in Wenatchee, Washington. Really ultimately grew up there altogether until I moved over to Spokane in 2011.
Okay.
I went to EWU, or Eastern Washington University, studied art, specifically photography, video, and film, and really just jumped off with it. I did not start at Eastern in that program. I started as a forensic scientist and wanted to focus more on missing people just in general. That was something that really sparked an interest in me, especially with my dad's background as an ex-Marine, ex-cop, and also just how Wenatchee is and how a lot of BIPOC folks end up missing or in the river, unfortunately, and just not a lot of cop presence when it comes to trying to figure out what happened to them. But then I figured out there's a creative way that I can go about that, which is where I found photography and film and trying to figure out how to align my story as well within that. And yeah, just been finding my way around Spokane. I didn't know anyone here when I moved here. It was kind of isolating at first until I got into the art program, but I've been here ever since, and both my kids are born and raised here, so I'm loving it.
Dang, so that's pretty heavy. That's heavy. So you were talking about missing peoples, which is, like you said, a problem that happens with BIPOC people, Native women. I was actually just talking with a friend last night, a Native girl from the Spokane tribe, that she felt like she'd been targeted recently for, being kidnapped or whatever, taken.
Yeah.
And it's wild to me, like that perspective of that's really going on, and it's really happening, and it's really dangerous out there for BIPOC women. So what kind of initiate, I guess we're just going to dive in heavy right away. Like what initiated your real interest in missing people? I know you mentioned your dad, but was there like a certain event that happened where you were growing up that kind of felt like you needed to pursue this, or?
Well, I had a friend, Rudy. He went missing, and he's Latino. He was one of my ex-boyfriend's uncles, and they ended up finding his body about 5 months later down the river, the Columbia River, over by Hydro Park. And to this day, it's not seen as a hate crime, but him being just, I guess, gay, and the way how he carries himself in Wenatchee is he ran into a lot of weird moments with cops and just people mistreating him for being himself. And to this day, it hasn't been confirmed who actually put him in the river or how he got there. And his mom's still advocating for it, but I'd say that knowing their family really closely, and just, I think I have my dad's part of his brain, like his scientific and just I need to take action sort of side. And it just got me thinking along lines of also watching a lot of crime documentaries. I've always been watching Investigation Discovery and all those type of things. So it just really fascinated me on how can you actually find the killer, and then most importantly, how do you find the people that haven't been found?
Yeah. What have you found as far as answers along the way? Have you found any yet, or what is it that we can do to help with this?
Honestly, I don't have the answer to that, but mostly community advocacy. I worked briefly with Spokane Regional Domestic Violence Coalition and talking to a lot of DV victims. Being a DV survivor myself, it was really, I didn't know how hard it would impact me. And ultimately, I had to leave due to other obligations, but also because it was just so heavy on my heart. I couldn't stand to be there and see this day in and day out. But being there and helping with the MMIW movement that Spokane has, and just the importance behind, sharing those stories, I think is really important. And making sure that it's always at the forefront of conversations, because it's been happening since the beginning of, colonialism here in the United States. It hasn't stopped happening. And I feel, having 2 kids myself, I'm always thinking about that as a possibility. Maybe not every day. Not usually that morbid, but it's always in the back of my mind that someone might think wrong of them just because of how they look. Because I've definitely felt that just growing up in general.
I'm gonna have you get a little closer to the mic. I don't want people to miss, or you can bring it closer to you, whatever feels more comfortable. I just want to make sure people get what you're saying, because it's important. Yeah. I think it's such a wild world that we live in. So many dangers in it. And just the judgments of people, like for all of us. I mean, I know that it's way more intense for BIPOC people than for white people. And I think that's why I want to have you on the podcast. It's like these voices need to be heard. It's important that we do have these conversations, and also just like letting your voice be heard. Like that's what, the point of the podcast is like giving an opportunity the way that I can. Not that other opportunities aren't out there, but just the way that I can help create an opportunity to hopefully share that story you're talking about and see where it goes from there. I mean, I'm no philanthropist or anything, but I'm trying to do what I can, to just connect the community and help people get their messaging out there. I mean, that's ultimately what I'm trying to achieve with the podcast. So basically you're saying the best way right now is just figuring out a way to bring these stories more to light and pushing the truth of this narrative that, this is really happening. Can't just sweep it under the rug forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're reminded just naturally through media, just seeing what's happening around the world and in the U.S. There was just a recent missing Indigenous male, and they ended up finding his body in a forest. And, it's just those constant reminders of, this can happen to anybody. This can happen to anybody's baby. And you don't have to be a person of color for it to happen.
Right.
And I think that's also really important to stress, because I think there's a lot of us against them that always occurs in the U.S. And just naturally, I think just from propaganda and whatever has happened in the past and future. But yeah.
I mean, white people be getting killed all the time. I mean, there's just, but the point is that you guys are a minority. So when it happens to you, it's different, because it's just a different way. And also for you coming from a Native background as well, that is a big separation from my perspective. You know, you have ancestors that called this home, this was their land, and then white people showed up and that changed, you know. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's challenging because it's like I go to some of these events and like lately they're like saying that they respect the ancestral lands of the natives, and I'm just like, yo, that's such a PC call to just make yourself look like you care. And I just don't feel like ultimately is very genuine sometimes. And that could just be my perspective of how I'm jaded against kind of stuff like that, you know? And I mean, yeah, I don't know. So it's hard. It's hard to weigh like what's genuine and what's not when people are trying to all of a sudden be like, oh, we respect the fact that this used to be a fishing ground for the Spokane tribe and other tribes. And how are we respecting that? We don't even have salmon in this river no more. So where's the salmon? All the dams messed that up. So what do we, I mean,
where's the action?
When are we getting the salmon back? That would be a true sign that, okay, we do care enough to at least bring the salmon back, and, you know, Native people could actually come fish that river again or something.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just speaking off the top, but that's just like an idea. I don't know.
Yeah, I think also like these land acknowledgements that keep occurring, there's a piece of respect in them, but also a little daunting for Native folks that have to be the one to go up there and do it. I realize that more and more as I hear them, because they're either automated by what sounds like an AI voice.
Yeah.
Or
that's what
or
I've
it's a
noticed
human.
too. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's strange. Yeah.
Yeah. So with Mama Wolf, tell us about that business and kind of your mission with that and what you're trying to achieve with Mama Wolf. Sounds like that's tied into your narrative of course, bringing these missing people stories to light. But what else is it about?
Well, Mama Wolf Media, I guess in a nutshell, is a collaborative of things. It's my personal art practice mixed in with community outreach. And community is very intertwined in this. I work with a lot of nonprofits, like SRDBC, Carl Maxey Center. I've worked a little bit with Spokane Arts and trying to find organizations, especially in the film and art realm, that need a voice on their panel. So I've been on numerous panels like SPIF. I've been on their panel for about 5 years now, helping with programming, and been helping with 50-hour slam, and just finding all those pockets that I feel like, you know, the community always goes to these events, but they need to make sure they need to have a diverse, diverse voices, I guess, on their team, looking at this content, making sure that it is inclusive and just offers more than kind of the staple Spokane. Because I know that there's more to Spokane than just what we see on the surface.
So do you think this brand, this company, Mama Wolf Media, is kind of your way of creating a platform to make some change that you see needs to happen, or also maybe to be able to put your foot in the door to be involved with keeping things respectful and authentic towards, or bringing that maybe light back to, hey, these things matter, and there needs to be some shifts surrounding how BIPOC people are treated. What, like, that seems like that's kind of what, from my outside perspective, what you're really heavily involved in, also with like women advocacy and, like you said, domestic violence and these different things that you seem to be just so involved with, like making change That's what I see, right?
Right. That's pretty much the gist.
Yeah.
I always want to be that person that can help in whatever form that may be, whether it's just setting up tables at an event or, actually making someone force me put on a mic, to come up there and host the thing. But yeah, I feel like this is something that has been in me for quite some time, and I've just now got the courage to actually initiate it last year. And since I've only seen good come out of it, and I've had really just blessed conversations with people and being able to help in ways that that I just have like technical experiences in, but actually in conversation can enjoy.
Yeah.
Especially working with the Carl Maxey Center. I've been working with them for quite some time, and Sandy was just one of my idols back in the day before she passed. Well, she still is, but it feels so weird going back there and just seeing the place, but also it's really positive to see what has progressed since she's passed and how her movement, in a sense, has still been going on, and people are really raising up and making sure that things are put into action for her. But also, like Mama Wolf Media, I have found myself in it a lot, just through certain projects I've worked on and allowed myself to express. Because I'm someone that's very quiet and keeps things in, and I think art is just one of those appendages that you can use to be able to not only relate to people or not relate, but just find your sense of self in general. And I think that's really hard for people, even these days, with Instagram and all this social media hype, and like, who is your authentic self? And that's one of the wonders of consulting with people through my business. I get to help them find that and help them with their bios and the artist statements, resumes. I help them with websites, documenting their work. A lot of that kind of stuff to help them have the resources, I guess, to move forward.
Yeah. Well, you have a very powerful voice, even though it's very soft, it's very powerful, and you are very well articulated. I feel like you and James, you both really share that skill set. And, I just really respect what you're doing, and I support it. I'm glad that you took the leap, because I believe you're a powerful woman that's going to go on to do really great things. And we've, like, people that know and have seen what you've done within just a year, what's going to happen from here, and I also understand the fact that it takes time to build up the courage or whatever to hop in. A lot of people just say like, oh, you just need to just get in it, just hop. And it's not that easy always, there's a lot of different things for some people that they have to process. They have to understand themselves. They have to actualize themselves to a certain place before they feel that they have the value to bring, What I see, like you were talking about with social media, is that a lot of people pretend they have the value. They want to pretend like they got it, but they don't have the experience. They don't have the knowledge. They just want to be that, and they haven't paid their dues. And I feel like our culture is definitely pushing people more into acting like you can just do anything whenever you want to do it if you really want to do it. Like, it's not really that easy from my perspective. Now, does that mean you don't start? No. Like, if you want to start. Like, each path is going to be different for everybody. So for my path and the way I've always wanted to do it is like, I felt like I had to level up to certain places before I could take action on some of my dreams. And then there would be times where I would take action, but then I feel like I digressed in level, so I would stop doing what I was doing. Now I was like, I got to earn back that level, and right now I feel like I've earned back up to some certain levels, and there's a lot of action that's taken place. And, it's great to be in that execution mode again, but to get back to that execution mode, I felt like I really had to and prove it to myself. So I understand like the challenge of wanting to do something, but feeling like I'm not ready. And so there's a point where you're always going to feel like you're not ready. You're always going to feel like some nervousness, I think, with doing things where you put yourself out there, like doing this podcast. We were talking about it off camera before. We're both nervous, and I think, remaining in your authenticity is like the one way I try to do it is I try not to curate my podcast too much. But like in the intro, I messed up one of the words, so we redid it. But I can come back and talk about it now because it's just like there is this pursuit that I'm trying to attain of like putting out great quality content and being able to articulate my podcast in a certain way that is going to be consumable. But I also know like nothing's perfect, you know what I mean? And so I have these insecurities about the podcast. That's what I'm trying to say. I have these insecurities that surround doing this podcast and like me trying to establish that I'm trying to help people and that's the purpose of this podcast. I have imposter syndrome that surrounds that. I have all these different things that are trying to eat at me about doing this podcast, but I keep showing up. You know what I mean? And I got myself to a place when I started the podcast finally, about 2 years ago, where I was just like, I'm ready enough. And I started. And I still have to make that decision like almost every podcast, like, all right, we're doing like, it's like starting over almost again, And I think a lot of performers and people that do this understand that anxiety that comes with being a performer or being someone that's going to step into the spotlight or whatnot. It's just about you keep showing up no matter how scared you are of doing it, and knowing like you're not gonna be perfect, but I don't know. What do you think on that?
Gosh,
That's a
like
lot. That's a lot. I just went off on one, but
no, you're speaking truth for sure. I can relate with basically all of that, and definitely keep showing up, because it is when you see someone's face continuously in the community coming out and showing support. You don't have to have money; just come show that you're supporting and you're hearing them. That's what I try to do when I'm able to get away from my kids. But no, I feel that imposter syndrome so tough, especially like with the festival, being director and being probably the quiet out of all of us and being put on camera or in front of a mic. I'm getting used to it, but it's baby steps. I try to push myself into situations that I feel this anxiety. Like I'm teaching right now at Whitworth University an art class. It's called time-based art making. So we're dealing a lot with short film. We did some stop motion animation projects and just getting the students comfortable with telling their story and really figuring out what their story is and their themes that they tend to pull from has been really interesting. And thinking back how I was when I was in college and trying to find myself, that was chaos. And so I feel like having someone that they can relate to in that sense is important too, instead of someone that's maybe more proper and not as anxiety ridden. But yeah, it's been a lovely experience, kind of fielding through the grass, I guess.
Yeah. Do you have any like projects right now that you're doing with Mama Wolf Media that you want to mention? Any cool projects on the horizon that we should be looking out for?
Ooh, well, as an artist, you're always applying to grants.
Yeah.
So that has been my reality for sure. I've been wanting to start this new like documentary. It's an interactive series, but it also deals with projection. So it'd be more so for like a gallery installation setup, but I also want to make it so it can actually go around the film festival circuit as well. But it's called Gentle Giants, Hearing from the Parents, because I feel like at the beginning I was wanting to just talk to BIPOC mothers and, filled out what their experiences are, just living in the US or wherever and going through all the quarrels that is, raising kids, trying to go to school, trying to have a job, being a good lover, and just what that actually looks like being sustainable in multiple areas, which not everybody can do. And if you say you can, I don't believe you. Because that's a fight, when you have your own business or if you're working for yourself and you're trying to raise kids and be financially sustainable, that's tough. And also being true to what your mission is can be hard in that respect, especially if you're just starting. So I try to remind myself, follow your mission, which is to help folks that I genuinely feel not just need help, but deserve the help. Like they've been there, they've been in the community, they've been helping time in and time out. And, if I can help boost in my own sort of way, why not? I think that's why I work with nonprofits in particular. I've been working with the Alliance for Media Arts and Culture for quite some time, since 2018. But I think that's also helped me grow as well, just as an artist and my voice in general. Wendy Levy, she's amazing. She lives here in Spokane, and she's a warrior. Like, I wish one day I can be to that standpoint where I can just like say what's all on my mind. And I'm working on it. But just a lot of different projects we've worked on together. It's always about uplifting voices and making sure, the youth are heard, and dealing a lot with youth media in particular. And, just finding those pockets that aren't being seen. And I think that's what resonates with me the most. And I see that in Spokane. And so I go to where I see that.
Mm-hmm. There's a famous quote that goes basically like, if you don't see something in the world, then create it. Mm-hmm. Right. And sounds like that's kind of going back to what I was kind of saying earlier, like what what you are doing with Mama Wolf Media is you see things that their stories aren't being told. Mm-hmm. And you're like, I'm going to be the one to tell it then. I think this story needs to be told. Well, we need to bring this to light. So nobody else is doing it. I'm going to do it. Yeah. And that's very admirable. I feel like with me in city chapters, it's like me trying to create a community, because I don't see that type of community, or I haven't had it in my life yet. Or maybe it's me seeking community and communities that already exist, and I was talking with Derek Landers, who's a great graphic designer from Spokane. He works at Bison Printing, did a lot of work for the great PNW, but me and him just were sitting in the warehouse the other night and talking about art and the pursuit of, how do we both represent Spokane, because he does a lot of Spokane designs. He actually designed the Spokane official flag. So he's done a lot of great work for representing Spokane. But we were just talking about, just like the pursuit of why do we create? What are we really creating? And for me, it's like, why am I creating city chapters? What is it that I'm trying to make? And for me, it's like I see certain things that aren't happening, or at least not in my field of vision. And I feel like authentic voices need to be heard, especially in our city.
Yeah.
And the podcast is just one way that I can help bring on people that I feel their voices need to be heard. You know, like sharing the story of Olivia Evans today. You know, your chapter, what you're submitting to Spokane, the work that you're doing. It's important. And you should be acknowledged for it. And I feel we don't do enough acknowledgement in our city sometimes. But that's my perspective. I could be wrong. I think that there is a lot of great things going on. And that's why I think me doing city chapters is helping me get involved in understanding, oh, there is actually a lot going on. There is actually a lot of people doing a lot of great work that are truly acknowledging people. And so it's funny that I find myself pursuing city chapters because it's actually like my education on learning about community and learning how to be a part of a community. Because I actually think that I'm probably have a hard time with that based upon some of my past coming from street life and like just certain things I got myself involved in that really made me closed off to community, or not trusting other people, or not wanting to interject myself into certain things. And so like city chapters is forcing me to be uncomfortable and to also shift my perspective and like really check my perspective too, because the podcast is helping me check my perspective a lot. I'll rewatch something that I said and I'll be like, wow, dude, like you really need to work on your perspective, bro. Like you have your opinions, but your opinions are just your perspective. And, you know, sometimes like there's the other saying, the world doesn't revolve around you, but it does. Like our mind, until you can step outside of that, but we can't do that at all times. Our mind is designed to try to protect us. And without our mind, like really this wouldn't exist. So the perception of the world is only from your mind. So the world does really, from my perspective, does revolve around you. It's about understanding that, and then you're able to shift to a broader perspective that, okay, my mind sees the world the way it wants to see it. Once you realize that that's what's happening, then you can start being like, okay, but how can I look at things differently? But if you're not cognizant of the fact that your mind's doing this all the time, it's trying to big up your ego or pull it down to keep you where it wants you to be, because it's basically, you know, controlling your life. Your mind controls your life. And it's a challenge to get outside of that and to get to a place where you get control back from your mind. You get your mind, body, and spirit in alignment, and that's where true power can come from and true happiness can come from. And I just feel that, you know, the pursuit of city chapters is helping me figure that all out. That's like what I'm going to wrap it back to. It's like, it's funny how building a brand or building this company is like all about me, like educating myself on how to be a better person. And I don't even know if I knew that's where it was all leading me to until like maybe the last year or so, maybe. And like really within the last few months, I've been like, whoa, this is really deep why I'm doing this. Like this subconscious creation that I've put into the world to help me better cope, better connect, you know? So it's a trip. It's a trip.
I feel like every time I talk to somebody, just hearing their story, I'm always like, oh, I can relate to that. But overall, like, oh, that's how I can possibly get over this hump that I'm on. Just from that, that's my train of thought. Just from that conversation, there's always ways or avenues that you can go for personal growth, community growth. And I think that's also where I strive, finding community. In Wenatchee, there was a sense of that. I had, my friends that we'd go and hang out at the caves and, have parties and that kind of life. But I was just so done with high school. I just didn't want to be there. But then right after high school, I actually, just a weird story I'm going to put out there. Me and my friend Siri, we got caught for shoplifting right before I was about to go into an exchange student program in Germany. And so here I am sitting in court a month before I'm about to leave out of the country for my first time. And they're asking me, do you need a lawyer? Do you want to object? And I'm like, nope, I'm clearly on the camera. All I stole was, face wash because I couldn't afford it. And here I am paying $600 in fine and multiple days of community service. But I damn well learned my lesson. But I think just the look on the judge's face when I said, no, I don't need someone to speak for me was really surprising for her. And just wanting to dish out, my reprimand. But after I ended up doing that, I went to my trip or went to Iceland and then Germany. And it was over there where I actually started thinking about myself and what I wanted, because I feel like living in a small town as Wenatchee is, I know it's grown since I've been there. I just felt like I was in kind of a one-track mindset. Felt like I couldn't really get out, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was always working with the yearbook department to take pictures, and I really enjoyed that. And just really escaping out into nature any chance I could get, because I felt like that was better than being at home. And my mom put in a lot of work growing up with me and my sister. Usually worked multiple jobs, and single mom life is rough. And when my dad came back into the picture in 2007, I felt like that kind of got better. But they're just two opposite personalities. And, bless their hearts, they're together and they moved up here after I moved up here. But, just being in that weird sense of identity and trying to find myself when I don't see people who look like me. Throughout school. And, for the longest time, my sister mainly identified as Italian because that's who we grew up around. And it's like, but Whitney, you're so much more. Pull from that, figure out what your roots are, and we'll do it together. But coming into Spokane and seeing Native presence and seeing more diversity, which is funny because when I say this, people say, where are you seeing this? But I have been, and it's really refreshing, to see people from Africa, and especially being on EWU campus, they really strive for diversity, which I think can have dual intentions. But for the most part, it's been really good, I think, for Spokane to have more international students around, and also for them to view how Spokane is and just kind of the interesting environment. But yeah, it's just been kind of the search for my identity, and I feel like I'm finally finding that, and it feels good because I feel like I'm finally at a place where growth doesn't just halt. I'm wanting to let it continue, and I don't just knock on, little Olivia's brain back in my subconscious and say, you didn't do all these things, but actually look where you're at. I don't think I give myself that credit as often as I should. And I'm told multiple times by people that I know that I should recognize what you've done. And because I'm always just in the go mode. I'm always trying to find the next project or see who else needs help, because I think it's easier to focus on someone else's problems or someone else needing help than your own, and really diving into subconscious thoughts that stick with you, and they do direct what your actions are. And that's a lot that I talk about in my work, is how can your conscious and subconscious thoughts direct your life and how you treat your children and your family and your friends. And I don't feel like a lot of people really settle on that and sit down and actually think about that regularly, which is also really important. And I'm happy to say I've never spanked my children, and I treat them with the upright respect as I possibly can, because I've just been mistreated in so many different ways throughout my life that I would never want to instill that on them, and always make sure that they're feeling that sense of gratitude in themselves and knowing that they continue in whatever they want to do. Like my daughter, she sees me go out there and, be on stage, like at the Root Experience Festival. And she's like, Mom, you were just up there talking in front of all these people. And then there was a hand drum. She's like, Mom, there's a hand drum. It was just this crazy experience. And not to go into the sidetrack, but
oh, that's good.
Her dad was there. So we were together for about 5.5 years, and I don't talk about this very often. She goes over there on the weekends, and it was just kind of this weird relationship between us. I think it was very codependent, and I lost myself in that. And I didn't find myself until I went back to school and finished out my degree and actually separated from him, because he was very all about him and Olivia last. And even though we're trying to raise a child, it just never seemed to be focused on her or myself.
Yeah.
And so once I made that separation and actually gained that control, I've never felt better. I'm not to say against him or anything that he's a bad person. He's, in his own right, he's working his own path and trying to find his growth. And, I never want to think that somebody is going to go downhill, or I want people to be in their healthy state.
Yeah.
Really, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I want the best for people, and if that means my daughter's going to hang out with them every weekend, that's fine. But I still have those connections, whether I'm seeing it consciously or subconsciously. When I see him, I get anxious. When I hear him speak and say demands like she's going to come here this weekend, I try to just roll it off. I'm told multiple times by family, speak up for yourself, speak up for yourself. But at the same time, I want to be true to what my daughter wants. And if that means being uncomfortable, then I will be. But yeah, I still, every time I see his face, I have the past flood back in, and just the things he would say to me and make me feel like. And yeah. But anyways, on that note, I feel empowered in a sense that I am regaining that control of just who I am, and being able to do things that I love to do and talk to people about important and meaningful things. And I think there's nothing better about being able to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing one on, that story with your ex, because there's a lot of people going through that same thing right now, and maybe your voice can help them during this time, and the other thing too, that I would point out is that, your love for yourself began to supersede the ill treatment you were receiving from an individual, and so, props to you to find your way out of it with love, because that's the only way you find your way out of something like that, is if you decide you love yourself first and foremost, and obviously your children probably were, your daughter was probably involved in that decision as well. But, I think that you only take abuse from somebody to the level of respect you have for yourself. If you respect yourself at a certain place, nobody is going to disrespect you below that place, But if the disrespect you show yourself is at a place that you will receive from others, you'll allow that disrespect, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So wherever your threshold for disrespect is within yourself, you'll accept that from others. If your threshold for respect for yourself is higher than what people are showing you, you ain't going to accept it. And at some point, if you, no matter what the situation is, in a relationship like that, regaining your power, regaining your love, and getting the hell out of there
Yes.
is powerful. And it gives you, a sense of, like we're talking about love and respect for yourself, and that's beautiful. And it's beautiful that you've been able to climb out and now you're willing to share, because I don't think enough people are willing to be truly vulnerable about their hardships and what they're dealing with. Like, kind of same thing. Let's just sweep that under the rug. Now, I do believe there's a balance between talking about hardships, the challenges of life, and then just complaining and being woe is me. And neither of us are doing that here, and I always try to make sure I'm not complaining. I'm just being real, like life's hard, yo. And it's difficult at times. There's all sorts of different tests that life throws us. Yeah. And, sometimes we have to be given that test over and over and over and over again until you realize, like, okay, I know what I need to do here, what I have to do. And it's funny because, like, I say this humbly, universe, but whatever mysterial, that's not a word. Mysterious challenges it's thrown my way. There's been a few lately that I just kind of laughed, There were challenges or temptations from my past that I would have indulged in my past, Yeah. But where I've been at over the last few months, some of these temptations have came around, or these tests, and I just have just laughed at them, because I'm like, oh, you trying that old thing again with me? Like, no. I'm beyond that now. And not to say I can't backslide, but right at this moment, I'm beyond that. You know what I'm saying? And it feels good. It feels good to be able to see those tests now for what they are, where I failed at them so many times before. And to, just realize that I actually respect myself at that level now, which has been good to see, like, dang, I actually can laugh at that because I respect myself so much that temptation or test or whatever is not even challenging for me anymore. It's not even hard to say no, or it's not hard to know what I have to do here and not resist it. And I certainly have other things that I'm being challenged with and tested with for sure. Like, I'm not out here just floating around, but these, like some of, like I'm saying, these older ones that I dealt with for a long time, it's good to see from myself that I respect myself that much now, currently. I hope I can stay there.
I think that's a beautiful state, because I feel like a lot of people carry this insecurity with them and sometimes don't quite know why, or they don't think about those past moments where they had that rough patch, or, just self-hate moments really compiling, which I can definitely resonate with that.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like the other thing too, what I think is in the power of being vulnerable and talking about this stuff openly is it allows it to not build up within yourself and then project it on the others. Because people that are always trying to chip someone down, it's because they are so insecure with that same thing within themselves that they're just trying to rip everybody else down around them. And so if you can't talk about it openly and be real and authentic with what you're actually dealing with, you're going to try to hurt others, because you're not allowing yourself to really be okay with what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's part of one of my skills is like just my ability to be vulnerable on my podcast and just in conversation with people about, yo, like, this shit's crazy. This life, this human experience is intricate and it's difficult. And, you know, if you're lucky, you get to fail a whole lot of times until you figure it out, you know, but not everybody gets all those chances, you know. Some of us fail and game's over, you know. And I'm just thankful that I've been given so many opportunities in life to try to figure it out and get it right. And, you know, I know it's going to be a lifelong pursuit for me. And that's something that I've really come to appreciate more and respect more too, is like, it's always going to be, there's never going to be this place I reach in this human experience that's going to be like, I am Buddha. Yeah. I am a Buddha now. Who knows? Maybe I am the next Buddha.
Have some faith. Yeah.
Bobby Buddha. No, but for real. Yeah, this is good. This is the kind of convos I love, man. We getting into some good stuff. We shook the nerves off and we're just getting into the really good stuff. So you had a few notes I was gonna pull from. We could go on some topics here, which are kind of tying into what we've been talking about. So let's just talk about balance. Let's talk about balance for you. You know, you mentioned the roller coaster of being a full-time artist, business owner, and a parent. So what are some techniques and ways that you're finding that are helpful for you to be able to balance all your pursuits, raising your children? What are some tools you got in your arsenal?
That toolbox is constantly updating itself, I feel like. Really just making sure I check in with my kids and my partner. You know, we all are going, I feel like I'm always in this, so just say I overanalyze most situations. I'm just kind of wheeling and dealing in my brain and trying to figure out how I can make a situation work, and really just trying to find that sense of perfection or normalcy. But honestly, being able to go like into spaces that aren't work with my family, so escaping out into nature or going out for a bite to eat or just getting froyo, like just being around the laughs and the giggles. That's what I love. That's what really energizes me to go back to work. Because I feel like if I don't have that time away, that I won't be at the best state of mind, because I'm working my brain too much. And although I can do that also, I manage through it, but I come out in the end with less energy to be able to, you know, converse with my family and be able to play with my kids, and being able to work on my own art, which seems to be troublesome sometimes when I have too many projects going on. But even teaching, like, that has been it's been opening my eyes to a lot of different things, and just figuring out how to, like, I feel like a question that people ask lately to me is, if you could say something to little Olivia, like, what would it be? That's too long of a response. But being able to help, you know, youth in a position of insecurity and help them find their sense of self, or what technical aspects that they want to use to be able to build their toolbox. That's what really, I think, nurtures the work that I do, is being able to see, not seeing a return in that investment, but being able to have that conversation as well. Because I feel like even when I'm alone which typically when I'm alone, just relaxing, I'll be just sitting at home watching a crime documentary or something, or a nature documentary, you know, finding out what's happening in South America right now.
Yeah.
But I also get deep into dramas and try to, it's a specific term for this, but escapism, trying to escape from my reality if I'm too stressed, where sometimes I find when I do that too much, I can't reel myself in, and I'll almost get exhausted when I try to go back out and work on projects or hang with my kids. But being able to find that center, which is, you know, going out into nature, hanging with family, doing those check-ins to friends and family, being able to bead. Like, beadwork is so therapeutic. I can just sit there for hours if I'm able and just, you know, stab my finger 1,000 times, but I'm making something, and it kind of numbs your brain to where you're only thinking about the task at hand and counting your beads and the colors, that you're not able to kind of drift. So I find that helps a lot.
Keeps you present.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, beadwork is awesome. I love some of the pieces that I've seen you wear, and James has got some crazy work.
It's above.
Yeah.
Above where I'm at.
Yeah.
Not quite to medallions yet.
But yeah, I find that, like, for me, snowboarding can be that, you know, where I'm just totally just present with what I'm doing. I need to find some other probably activities that I can do more around the house or something to do that. I use probably TV, you know, like watching a show. I just finished the Jamie Foxx show. Like, it's from the 90s, I think, like late 90s. It's on Netflix. But man, because I didn't watch that growing up, you know, I was too young and wasn't on in my household. But watching that show back, it's just like Jamie Foxx is so funny. That dude is a comical genius and can play such a great character, you know. And I just finished it last night, and I'm like, dang, I don't get to hang out with Jamie Foxx no more, you know, because like that's how I feel. I feel like with those kind of shows, it's just kind of like an escape, you know. Like during COVID, I watched Friends, like the full show for the first time, and I was like,
dedication.
Yeah, because it was just like I ain't got nothing else to do, and I was like hanging out with those friends, you know what I mean, in the show, and it's like kind of just helped me feel like I was hanging out with a group of friends or something weird, you know, like that that had that impact on me. So I'm trying to find that balance with like TV is my escape, you know, because right now it's time spent that I could spend doing time on my dream, you know, and not procrastinating on it, not pushing it out, but also having that balance, understanding like you can't be on all the time, and you know, you need recovery time, you need downtime so that your mind can rest and come back to work and operate at a higher level than if you're always just trying to chip away 24/7.
Oh, yeah.
So
definitely. And especially with like seasons changing, being able to go outside and well, going outside is different for everybody. Some people love, you know, going out in the winter, snowshoeing. Did that for my first time last year. That was so much fun. But also like when the sun comes out, I can go out and garden and do yard work, and yes, I'll be in pain for multiple days, but
I mowed my lawn
fun.
for the first time this year, though, there like 2 weeks ago. It was nice to get out there and just mow the lawn. I was like, yeah, I'm 35. I'm at that place. I got excited to mow the lawn.
It's good. I do too. Like, look, Mom, what you did.
Looked so good afterwards. I'm like, yep, got some work I need to do for sure on the yard this year. But yeah, those simple, actually, you know, like working around the house, working on just like the yard or like, you know, weeding and stuff. That is kind of a way for me in the summertime and or, the warmer months to kind of uncheck and get grounded and get my hands in the dirt, just literally grounding myself through my work on the house or out at my cabin. Like that is a way for me to get out of my head with work stuff or whatever else I might be dealing with. So
I feel that. Right when the sun came out, I tried to plant my corn starts and they just died. I was just so ridden with sadness.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, my hard work. It's okay. Just set more seeds in the dirt and work up from there.
Yeah. That's funny.
It's like not lingering in the failure, but just being real in the moment and making sure I don't know, it's just a really great stress reliever just to be able to get your mind off of something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, it's important. Like running is another one for me. I like running. Going to the gym and working out, it's not really one where I can like really untap. But when I'm running, that is one way for my mind to just kind of unwind, or just setting like a focus point that's very clear to me when I'm running. It's like I need to run for this amount of time or this distance, and I'm just thinking about getting there, and all the other distractions kind of fade away because it's just like literally next foot in front of the other. Like that's all I got to do right now. And so I've been finding more solace in running lately. It's just like forcing myself to do it, like just got to start. Same analogy
just get your clothes on. Get out the
just
door.
got to do it. But once I do it, I'm like, I feel so much better after a run. Psychologically, there's not anything really physical that I've found that alleviates my mental stress like running does. So that one's been good for me lately.
I need to try that. I don't typically run. Well, I don't run purposely. I chase my child down the trail. I used to rock climb all the time, and that was really what brought me to that same mode. I haven't, though, since I got pregnant with my son back in 2020 during COVID. But it's something that's been sparking in my brain. Like, just go. Just start again. Just get going.
Yeah.
And again, making it a priority, because I feel like, work's always going to be a priority. Keep, paying your bills, getting food in your fridge, making sure everything's handled at home. So often my brain goes there because I'm like, structural, let's go back to what's important. But then you also forget, okay, what's important to your spirit and actually will make your energy increase. It won't decrease your energy. It's going to do good for you. You're not going to get hurt, theoretically. Not going to fall off a wall or anything. That just got me sparked and just makes me want to start climbing again.
Yeah, climbing, I've done some. My brother has done more than me. It's something I would like to get back into, because I think for me, it's kind of like figuring the puzzle out and learning patience, and also increasing strength. Like you need a lot of strength to climb good. So
I'd say outside is more fun to climb for sure.
Oh yeah. I've done a little bit of outdoor, mainly indoor though. But I've done a little bit of top roping, so
being able to trust your partner, that's a fun experience.
For sure.
Don't you be talking down there.
A lot of trust has to be built into doing that. So let's talk about how your children watch your every move and how this can have an impression on them into their adulthood with their families, and how they see opportunity in the world. How do you think about this with your children?
It's another loaded question. Just, I guess through everyone's experience obviously will be different, but just growing up with that weird sense of identity of not quite knowing where I should be, or like even coming along the lines of who your friends are, like should you be friends with them? Should you be trying to like go see the world or just go straight into college, or dealing with relationships and how you want to be treated? I felt like growing up, I didn't even know what I wanted. I knew I wanted respect and someone to put, enough energy into me to make sure I'm okay, but also make sure they're okay. But yeah, just feeling that constant, can't say constant, but positivity, throughout. And I feel like with my kids in particular, because I think back into my past quite often. I don't travel to Wenatchee because of that. That's something I feel like I need to do more, is I need to travel back home because I do have family there, but I also feel like a little Olivia right when I enter, it's like, welcome to Wenatchee. And here I am. It's like a curtain is dropped and I just don't feel like myself when I'm here. And I think it's because I go back into that mindset that I'm back in high school or growing up and I don't have a place there for me to be me. So I go and I, escape out into nature, and that's the same thing I do here. But I try to move forward in more of a healthy route, definitely, than little Olivia did. I'd say back in the day, I let people walk on me. I was pushed aside quite a bit. It just did not put me in the best mindset. So when I had my daughter, it's like something washed over me and that responsibility became real. And I had to figure out, okay, what are we going to do to survive? At the time, I was living with my sister and her son, so my nephew, and she had a whole different way of parenting. She was very like disciplined, and I was more so, let's talk this out, because I feel like more comes out of conversation and actually understanding your actions than saying go sit in a corner, or spanking, because I feel like maybe that will transfer onto their kids when they get older. But everybody has their own ways of how they want to discipline. For me, it's through love and conversation, but also understanding who you are. So I know that's very trivial when you're talking to your kids, like, what do you want to do with your life? And you're like, I like cars. I don't know. My daughter loves drawing, and that's something that's been really special. She sees herself as an artist, and so I always get her, new paper and pencils, and just making sure she never feels that sense of doubt, which she will feel it. She's crumpled up so many papers and said, "This is just hideous," And I say, "Well, you're just beginning. This is a process. It's going to take you some years to get really, really fine-tuned on this." But I think for me, and just kind of the quarrels of raising kids and being true to them, but also yourself, you need to make sure you tell them what's on your mind. I know there's certain ages for this, for sure. I know just out of personal experience that my daughter's dad told her about how he treated me, in a sense. I don't know what was said, but one day she came home saying that my dad said he didn't treat you right, and there's something wrong with his head. And so I took that as, okay, you're trying to reflect on what he was trying to tell you, and that was a very awkward conversation. But again, just going back and, confirming that I heard what you said, I'm fine now, and I'm working through it. Always focusing on personal growth, not trying to push your insecurities, because they will be daunting on you for your entire life. But also being open to the insecurities at moments, saying, okay, I feel really anxious right now, and I don't want to be here, but I'm going to be here, because in a way you're trumping over that feeling and you're embracing it. And I think it's okay to embrace your strengths and your weaknesses, because otherwise what's the point? Because otherwise you're just striving for your strengths and always being that perfect person, and that's just not reality. So I think when your kids see you cry, or which hurts your soul because they start crying, or I do the same thing when my mom cries. I always start crying, and I'm like, no, don't. I want you to be happy all the time, be well and healthy. But treating your kids or showing them that it's okay to show their emotions, I think, is really important in general. And I'm sure that I've derailed from the question, but
No, it's good. You're on it.
I just feel like that's really important to stress. It's like, deal with your emotions, find those outlets that embrace the good in you, and being able to reflect on past experiences, and just ultimately being able to grow from it. Because I feel like you get stuck in that murkiness so often, especially when things are going on in the media, and people are getting hurt, and you're seeing it constantly, seeing mistreatment. And it's hard to feel that hope, feel a space for yourself in the future when you see people getting broken down by just the simplest things, or moments that they didn't even deserve to be in.
Do you feel an immense pressure of protecting your children in this world?
I certainly do.
Like, how do you protect them in this insane way of living that we have?
It's a scary world right now, but
yeah, there's a lot of beauty, but there's also too just a lot of craziness, and navigating it from me myself without children is a lot, pressure of having children and making sure that I raise them to be able to have emotional intelligence and to be able to critically think about their decisions instead of irrationally reacting to circumstances, is something I would try to attain and practice with them. The other aspect that I see in my idea of how I would parent is definitely a lot more in line with what you said as I've gained wisdom, because I think that children, they want to be respected as a peer, and when you treat them, and there's a balance here between being a parent and letting your child be a peer with you, I think. But of course, when you just belittle anybody, they're going to rebel.
Yeah.
You tell them that they don't have a choice, they're going to resent you. So how do you, from my perspective, how would I talk with my children in a way to help them understand the choices that they're making and the impact that they're having, instead of just telling them, no, because I said so, don't do that because I said so. That doesn't give them any life skills. Doesn't give them any proper coping mechanisms. It doesn't give them anything, really. And I certainly, did not get that from my father, so it's a hard one. I got some good things from my dad, other things, but as far as like emotional intelligence and those different things like that, no, none of that was in there. My dad, work ethic wise, putting in the work, that's my dad, you know what I mean? But and fitness, I'd say fitness too. My dad's loves fitness, always has been pursuing fitness, so that has helped, and reading books. So those are definitely the three strong attributes I gained from my father. Reading books, which has continued to help me in a lot of different ways as I've grown older. He doesn't like the same books that I like, but that discipline of reading books was from my dad. So
That's a good one to have.
yeah, I think of that one all the time, and I'm like, as much as whatever I didn't get from my father or whatever, it's like he did give me reading, he did give me fitness, and he did give me the understanding of, I think his work was toxic, like his addiction to work, workaholic, whatever you want to call it. But there's still a good attribute as a man to pursue what you feel your calling is. And that is, I believe, like, that's what a man is supposed to do. You're supposed to pursue your calling. But where he messed up is he did not understand how the pursuit of that calling also involves making sure your family is a part of that and understands that, and there's presence with your family too, making time, balance for your family as well. So
Definitely.
So I've had to go through a lot of different ways of thinking of that and learning how I wouldn't want to be a father, based upon my experience with my father. So, and then looking at the things that he did do, because he stuck around, he did a lot of other things that are great. So I have to always remember those things too, instead of being in a more resentful state with my father, because he's not a bad father in the essence of comparability. There's a lot of people out there that are not doing great jobs at all. And I think he did the best he could, as far as what he came up with and the era he came up in and the way that his mind was formed, and that's what I be thinking about a lot, is just like, we all know about this programming. Like, from the time you're young, you're being programmed to be a certain way. And every experience that you have is going to add to that program. And, up until I think it's 7, or like some of the most critical, or maybe it starts at 7, but either way, like that time frame of about like 6, 7 years old, like those are really critical years for how you're going to be as a person. Yeah. So it's a big responsibility as a parent if you care enough, or you're not suffering so much yourself that you're able to care for your child in the way they need, because I think that's ultimately the only reason that people aren't good parents, is because they're suffering so insurmountably that they just, how can they be a great parent if they're suffering so much internally?
Right. Yeah, not being able to have the capacity to share.
Yeah.
In that way, that's hard. And I've seen it happen. I mean, I've been in moments where I'm like, Mom just needs to hang out. Let me just watch you from the porch as you play.
Yeah.
But even in those moments, I see, come on, come play with us. And breaks my heart a little bit. I'm like, I will, just give me a moment. That just made me think of just growing up primarily with my mom, and my mom's family, side of the family, is really big. She has 7 brothers and sisters. So I was always around, it was either me hanging out with my grandma or us going over for some family function with all my aunts and uncles. And it was always family oriented, but behind the scenes, there was so much more going on. And I didn't hear about all these hardships and, series of abuse and stuff that was happening with them until I became a teenager. And then it was like, okay, we opened that can of worms, and now let's readdress that and go back and see, why are you guys holding on to this in the background? Why are you sweeping it under the rug, so to speak? And really, it was just because they were afraid to talk about it in general. I think just breaking down that barrier to actually acknowledge it was hard. And still, it has not been acknowledged. But, everybody goes through their own traumas, and that's going to affect how you react to your kid that's not listening when you're saying, just sit down and eat your perfectly made meal. Got all the food groups on there. Can you just eat it? My son is one of those. He will go pick up an apple and a banana, which is lovely, but he just will not eat what's on his plate unless it's a PB&J sandwich or an apple and banana or watermelon. Thank you that it's healthy foods, but I need you to have some protein and get all your things in. But yeah, my mom really instilled this perseverance, just wanting to be okay with what you're doing in general and going forward with what your dream actually is, because she didn't really push going to college on me. That was a decision I made for myself. Really, I wanted to get the heck out of Wenatchee. I felt really claustrophobic there after a while, even though I missed it when I left, because I came to a space that I didn't know anybody. But I think I really needed that because that really helped open my eyes to a lot of different personalities that I wasn't interacting with back home, and more of non-status quo. Back home, people would work and then they'd go drink, and that was just how it was. And then I always in those positions, I would find myself escaping into the woods while they were just goofing off by the fire, just so I can not be around people making fools out of themselves. But you love them. But yeah, my mom's always been that rock for me. And I know the decision to get divorced from my dad when I was around 2 or 3 was really hard for her to make. And I think ultimately it was pushed more so with her family behind, as the enforcer. And then of course, mental health was just not really the absurdities around mental health, I think, in general, and how people perceive it is really difficult. And he had really high PTSD back then, going to the war and being a cop, seeing the things that he's seen. And then he ultimately went into construction because he wanted to get away from all that and just work with his hands and build things. And then, of course, he found the bottle and suffers from alcoholism, on and off. He was doing really well, and then ended up starting here again after he heard that he couldn't have a major surgery that would prolong his life, but the doctors just don't want to cut into him because they see him as complex and just too fragile to work on. So that sparks, well, I deserve this. I've been working towards this. I've done everything you say. But then ultimately being told that you can't have that surgery that might make you live longer, or, just brings in a lot of self-doubt. So I feel like my mom also is kind of put in the middle of that weirdness because she doesn't really have a whole lot of friends or outlets. She cares for my dad 24/7. That's her job as a caregiver. And so I'm always going over there and checking in on her, how you doing? Okay, you're mowing the lawn again. Okay. Think you can just do once every couple weeks. That's fine. But she's very hardy in herself. She will go out and get things done, even though her body's, starting to break down. And which is also sad to see as your parents age and just that weird possibility that maybe one day they won't be there.
Yeah, I'm dealing with that a lot right now. So,
and reflecting on maybe just what happens when you get to that state and your kids are seeing this through their eyes. That's a scary thought for me as well. But hopefully you give them enough knowledge and care and just preparation for when that does eventually happen, or just any moments where you're down in general where they can maybe make you a piece of toast because you're not having a good day or you're feeling sick. That's also being self-reliant, but also being able to nurture others around you. I feel like our society needs tenfold. Community, is so important, especially now. Well, it has always been.
Yeah.
It's always been a thing. But going back to kind of what you're saying, this podcast helps you feel that, or helps bring that out in you, those certain connections. Being an artist in this community and helping with projects and having my business. My daughter actually helped me name. She always says that I'm Mama Wolf and she's Baby Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now she's Teen Wolf. It's like, you're not even a teen yet. Calm down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
She's still Baby Wolf.
Yeah. You will forever be a baby in my brain.
Yeah.
But yeah, just being able to manage it all and shift gears when you need to. I created a piece back in school that was called switching channels, which is basically just switching your personas to be able to deal with certain situations. So switching to mom, being a good partner, being a family member, daughter, whatever the case, like being able to do that without, pushing on your own insecurities and actually being able to help. That's something I've always strived for. It's not just, typically when people give you advice, it's like, so this is what you're doing wrong. Let's assess this and then let's find ways to maybe you can get around that or progress from that. Whereas I feel like I'm more, okay, let me hear what happened. Like I listen to people and then I figure out ways that maybe they can go, routes they can go down, but not really, I don't try to lead them in any way. I feel like that's important with a lot of the work that I do. I try to make their websites pretty and, come out of their state of mind as far as colors and branding and, their mission and values. I feel like that's really important to state on your website and just for your business is what is your mission? What are your main values? And how are you going to put this into action? Because that's what we need to see is action. But also having these conversations is really important because other people get to see that these other people are putting things into action, but they're also, it's okay to derail from that and go back into that insecure mindset because ultimately you will level up. You'll get past that. But I feel like if you don't wade in that murkiness every once in a while, you're not reminded of what's important and where you should be and how you should care for people. Especially if you lose a loved one, that really kind of puts you back into your place and makes you reassess how your life is and maybe you should have seen them more or, just being able to navigate all of this.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah. Switching channels. I like that. That's a good way to, a good analogy. Yeah, I feel like you got a lot of channels. You're doing so much. But you seem to, I don't know. I just, none of us truly know each other, right? We only know ourselves, in the way that we know how we kind of truly are. And so taking compliments sometimes is hard because we know how much we're suffering behind the scenes or whatever it is. But every time I've been around you, I just want to acknowledge that you are just so calming and soothing to be around, and just, you just got Mother Teresa vibes going, you know what I mean? For real, I just feel like you're going to go on to do some really impactful things with your work and your storytelling. Any way that, I can help you, please let me know. Of course, I wanted to have you on the podcast because I just think you're special individual, and people in Spokane need to tap in, and so yeah, if you're out there and you need some powerful work done, Olivia is your girl. Mama Wolf Media in the house. Beyond Mama Wolf Media, what other organizations in Spokane that you're working with or that you think are doing really important work? Just tell us about them.
Oh man, there's so many nonprofits that before I started this business, I didn't even know existed.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so much work happening behind the scenes that, like you were saying, a lot of those people don't get seen, don't get uplifted. But just them grinding day in, day out to do that work uplifts their spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I resonate with that for sure. But I would say Latinos in Spokane is doing amazing things. I don't know everything that they do, but they do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Really help with immigration services and Latino and Latina services, and really just being that hub that was not there here in Spokane to help that community. Carl Maxey Center has always been doing amazing things. MLK Community Center, all of the community centers in general. Like, whoa, it's just so many events that happen each month, and the work that they put out to all these extra services for families and food banks. And it's just really lovely to see. It's something I didn't see in Wenatchee. So coming out here and, making this my home, buying a house here really made this my home.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I guess I'm staying. But no, I love being here because of the energy. There's so much positive energy, but of course, with the positive comes the negative. But I feel like there's a lot of folks, where they're at in these different orgs they're just so strong. Like where the strength that they have in the way that they talk, whether they're the director of the org or just, person on the team, which is also important because you're there day in, day out as well. It's phenomenal. I haven't seen this kind of work in a long time. Didn't grow up around seeing that. And so being in a city that promotes that and folks on the ground are actually out there helping families and folks in need was really special. I can't name all the nonprofits. There's too many.
Oh, no, I wasn't asking you to name them all.
But
just ones that you are working with or that you feel are, just, special to you, as far as what you've been involved with.
So I got to give a shout out to Spokane Arts because they're always there when you have a question. Mm-hmm. Shelly's always like, yeah, just send me an email. She does the grants administration there. Mm-hmm. But really, she's like the mom of Spokane Arts. She's always there to answer people's call and see where they need help. And the libraries have been expanding and just seeing all this growth, but also making sure you're respecting the spaces that you're putting this growth. Recognizing gentrification. So like Kendall Yards areas, totally weird than when I first moved here. It's a whole different world. And I've heard from families that used to live over there and just being uprooted and displaced into communities basically that were worse than what they're in. Or just having to move out of Spokane altogether. So, there's good with the bad for sure. But just the work that I'm seeing put in is in various platforms, whether it's domestic violence, arts, health. It's profound, and I'm glad that it's happening more and more these days.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of these organizations that are really coming to the forefront more now. Mm-hmm. Like they're definitely more, there seems to be a bigger presence growing with these efforts. And I just want to learn, how I can help and learn from these people that are doing those great things, and having them on the podcast is one way I can help share their story and also get to learn from them through these conversations. So I definitely appreciate you coming on. And I just acknowledge you, Olivia. You know, you're an amazing person. And I'm really happy to have had you on again and really focus on you this time. So
thank you. I appreciate that. It's hard to focus on myself and talk about myself. So
yeah,
I also appreciate that push.
yeah. Well, you deserve it. You deserve it, Olivia. So
Thanks.
all right, let's wrap it up. All right, this is City Chapters Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby J. This chapter was with Olivia Evans. And shout out Spokecast for sponsoring and producing my show. Until next time, take care.